Hi everyone, my name is Mertcan. If you all, I have a fan. I'm in Berlin. It's really hot in Berlin, and I have a fan. If it's making too much sound, please let me know so I can turn it off. I don't have fancy presentations, so this is gonna be a chat where I hope we're gonna be connecting on different levels. Yay, it's working! Amazing. Hi everyone. Today, what I'm going to talk about is how to kick off an inclusion, diversity, and belonging project, or anything like initiative, a group, whatever you might want to call it. I'm going to based on these to my experience what that I had, and I'm going to start with a little introduction to myself. I'm not going to talk about where I worked that much. I will just like give a little snippet of it, but then what I want to focus on is like the real content. And this talk is for people who are already in the HR business, human resources business, who are already working in such teams, or who are planning to go into the field of D&I specialist, D&I manager, human resources, and would like to kick off and make an organization as inclusive as possible. My name is Mertcan. I was born and raised in Istanbul and moved to Germany 7 years ago to do my research. And my research was focusing on labor market discrimination, and I investigated why do we specifically discriminate specific groups of people towards another specific group. I specifically focused on the gay population and why they were discriminated anyways. And then that phase was the fact that I needed to earn money, and then I get into the startup scene, and I really liked it. I really liked the money, but also the startup world. And then I decided to work in that area. And I got also very lucky because in the last couple of years, inclusion, diversity, belonging, and equity topics are gaining a lot of importance, especially in the workplace, which is beautiful to see and also a little bit surprising to me. And as it's likely to be one of the most important and difficult and the human projects your company or your group will ever face, you have to be very careful how you approach to this challenge. And having studied this topic in university, I have now been working on building inclusion, diversity, and belonging programs professionally for a few years. And in that time, I've noticed that one of the biggest things companies and individuals struggle with this process is the very first hurdle, kicking it off. And one side note, my experience is very limited to the German startups with 50 to 200 employees. So it might be different, but I still believe some of the principles that I will share today here are universal and can be easily applied to bigger companies like we did at Blinkist. Yeah, that's the company that I work. Do you know Blinkist? You can add comments, yes and no. Blinkist is an app. It's also, it can be used on the web. What we do is we take nonfiction content and make them digestible in 15 minutes. This could be a nonfiction book or a nonfiction podcast. And it's simple, it's very usable. I love this is the first time that I'm working in a company where I use the product as well. And we also have a good selection on D&I related topics, so you might want to check it out. The 7 days are free. So I am going to be sharing my 7-point checklist on creating diversity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives, projects. The very first thing that I find in any project that you're going to be running in any organization is getting the buy-in from leadership team. This is key as they are the ones who directly or indirectly shape your culture. People look up to them and want them to have answers to all the big IDB questions. If they fail to do so, this will have a negative impact on how your employees perceive your IDB initiatives, and it will be harder for you to do your job. Leaders have to be sure that they want and support this project, and most importantly, that they are prepared to sponsor it. Money is really important. It may be the case that they're not that informed, which is fine, but they have to be prepared to educate themselves and to understand the crucial impact this would have on the organization. At this stage, you have a big part to play in explaining its importance. Why are we running this kind of an initiative? And I find showing case studies and data points very essential. With data on your side, it will be easier for you to explain the need for this project and make it clear from the outset. However, don't be tempted to make this into a business case. It's a human and societal issue and not about the bottom line. And don't forget that it's the responsibility of your leadership team to learn as much as they can and to dedicate themselves to this cause. You might have to take care of the kicking it off, but they have to go to meet you. Many people in leadership roles today are still white male, cisgender, able people who hold privilege to one extent or another, and they have to learn to recognize their privilege and to learn how to share it. So don't take over this responsibility while working on this topic. The second important step: hire an external consultant. These kind of projects are often perceived to be the responsibility of human resources teams, and in truth, human resources teams often take them on. However, you can't expect HR teams to automatically know how to run this kind of project, especially given that they're often tangled up in day-to-day operations. Hiring an external consultant will give this project the perspective it needs. And if you need one, you can easily Google it, and also you can reach out to me. The third one: take the temperature of your organization. The third step is connecting with your team members and employees, with members of your working group. You have to create the time to start having bidirectional communication with your people, to ask them how they feel about this topic and project. It is your employees' everyday experience that will guide you as they make clear what they would wish to change or see in the organization. It's essential to understand that their opinions matter most above else. We recommend that you appoint one experienced point of contact internally through which these kind of conversations can be funneled. But it's very essential that you ask the underrepresented groups more. Don't forget that the primary purpose of this project that you're going to start or kick it off is to lift the unpaid and exhausting burden from underrepresented groups and to delegate it to the more privileged ones. Collect feedback, take notes, and try to create an initial heat map of the issues you see in the organization. The fourth important step is collecting data and explaining why are you collecting data. And this stage is also a little bit about being serious about it. Talking to people is helpful and necessary, but you also need to find a more systematic way to make sure and make it easy to convince stakeholders and demonstrate the importance of this project. I have experienced in my life a lot of no's because I was merely stating my observation and opinion. By showing them data, you show them something that is not easy to challenge. So create a considerate survey and don't do it alone. Make sure that you design your survey not only with your consultants, but also with a group of people who come from different backgrounds and experiences. Let them shape the study with you. We're still in the research phase. One thing to not forget: feelings are data points too. To be able to have the full picture, you have to run qualitative research as well. This part needs to be done, in my opinion, by your external consultants if you'd like your employees to give honest answers in an unpressured way. In this case, my suggestion is to pick around 15 people from diverse backgrounds, seniority levels, and fields to have anonymized and confidential qualitative interviews with your consultants. And later, your consultants should give you a detailed yet very sensitive report on the discussions. We're coming to the fifth step. Decide on your first KPIs and keep in mind that small wins are big. Once you gather your data, inhale for a while, breathe the data in, and enjoy the moment. You accomplish so much more than many companies were struggling to achieve even this. And also congratulations on the very first realistic snapshot of your company or the organization that you work for or the working group. Now you know who is really in the frame. The next step is to understand and embrace the data. Often I see companies focusing on the descriptives, which are in many cases essential and the first step. Checking the demographics and average scores are very crucial. However, if you really want to conduct an inclusion, diversity, and belonging research, you have to level up and look into other aspects such as correlations or intersectionality. Let's say you end up with 50% male and 50% female employees. What does this mean? You'll get more understanding if you investigate who holds the power. Does every level from the, let's say, the woman population have the same sense of belonging? What are the differences between different fields, backgrounds, and groups? This is not about what you have in the organization, but now we're getting into how you have it in the organization. So instead of focusing on the what, also focus on the how. Once you have completed your data analysis, set up some focus areas, ideally between 2 and 3. And my humble suggestion is that you shouldn't have more than this and should focus on each of these separately and carefully. And you can create a roadmap for how you might solve the problem or achieve a specific goal. At this stage, another advice, you have to give up on being kind to everyone. Being kind doesn't necessarily give underrepresented people a seat at the table. Affirmative actions do, so focus on these affirmative actions. The sixth step, we're coming to the end. The sixth step is educate, educate, and educate. We often assume people's knowledge about topics like this, and in doing so, forget that we have all been born into a biased society. Educate your employees on the importance, or your team members on the importance of this topic and why it's necessary. Also start your affirmative training on specific issues that would help to increase the level of belonging. It's also important that you don't make this whole project about policing. The last thing you want is for your employees not to embrace this project. We especially don't want to lose the privileged people. We don't want them to be alienated, as their involvement is very essential. Hearing a story of oppression from one close friend, a colleague, or a team member is often more effective than reading an article about similar experiences. So to be able to educate appropriately, create a safe space where people can share their personal stories. The final step is letting it go. Know that having a dedicated project group or a person in the beginning is very important. And at the start, this will be probably your HR teams or HR functions. And this team won't be as diverse as you wish. Make sure that you have the courage to let your project go to a group of people who come from different backgrounds and experiences. In other words, a diverse group. Facilitate them in setting up as an advisory board with veto rights on the strategy level, and make sure that there's a system of rotation to maintain the diversity of this board. It should always be a collaborative project where all voices are given equal time with no one person leading the way. So create a platform where this project can continue evolving even after you leave the company, and then just let it go. So I set all these steps. This is the 7 steps that's gonna guarantee you, not guarantee maybe, because it still needs a commitment from everyone involved in the organization. But these 7 steps are gonna definitely give you a good base for you to kick off such a project. But the point of workplace diversity is differing opinions, positive conflict, and inclusive and equitable decision-making and outcomes. Keep that in mind. And those outcomes are hard to come by because so many workplaces concentrate their power among a few cisgender, heterosexual, and abled white men. The point of changing representation is precisely to disrupt that dynamic and create better outcomes. When we're proposed changes to representation that don't do those things, we should have a hard stop and ask ourselves, okay, what is really happening here? If you aim, also setting a real and true purpose is very crucial. If you aim for justice, if you aim for equity, you're going to hit diversity. If you aim for diversity, and if that is your only goal, you'll hit tokenism, assimilation, and justification of the unjust status quo. We see this far too often in multiple spaces, whether professional or social. It is important to recognize that justice and equity are not privileges that underrepresented individuals have been given systematically. Therefore, specifically aiming for diversity does not address the underlying issue that must be broken down at the workplace, but also at the society. And I'm going to give one final advice to everyone here, but also hopefully the people who have the position to be privileged. Learn structural discrimination. If you don't understand the systemic racism, you cannot be a good recruiter. If you don't understand discrimination and how that works in life and in workplace, you cannot be a good CEO or a founder. If you don't understand what any minority, let it be represented or non-represented, is going through and how different they are walking through the life than how you do as a privileged person, you cannot be a good person. So go back home and change yourself and learn things, read things, investigate, and be vocal about it. That's how you can really achieve a place where there's like real fairness, equity, and equality. And you need to become an ally and be active in taking actions. That's how it could work. And that is my talk. I hope you enjoyed it. I made it on time, 15 minutes. And if you have any questions to me, I think we're going to have a Q&A session. Am I right? Somebody help. Yes. Thank you all very much. Have a lovely rest of the day. Enjoy it. I will be going to the pool, and nice to meeting you all.